The first scream came from the playground, thin and terrified, slicing through the late afternoon air like a blade. People froze. Swings slowed. A basketball bounced once and rolled away. And standing at the edge of it all was a man who had promised himself he would never run toward danger again, until his daughter's voice shattered that promise without mercy. Ethan Cole had learned how to be silent in deserts where the wind erased footprints and in oceans that swallowed sound whole. He had learned how to breathe through pain, how to move without being seen, how to survive when the odds were stacked so high they felt like a wall. But none of that training prepared him for the way his chest tightened when he heard, "Daddy, please help her," trembling and desperate, coming from the smallest person in his world. He turned and saw Lily standing by the slide, her hands clenched into fists, tears streaking her dusty cheeks. She was pointing toward the far corner of the park near the old restroom building, where a group of men had closed in around a woman. The scene was ugly even from a distance. Raised voices, aggressive gestures, the woman pressed back against concrete with nowhere left to go. People nearby looked, hesitated, and then looked away, as if hoping the problem would dissolve if ignored. Ethan dropped to one knee in front of Lily, his movements controlled but his eyes fierce with focus. "Go to Mrs. Hernandez," he said softly, nodding toward a bench where an older woman sat watching the kids. "Stay with her. Don't move until I come back." Lily nodded, fear battling trust in her eyes, then ran. Ethan stood, exhaled once, and walked, not ran, toward the men. He was dressed like any other single dad killing time at a park. Faded jeans, sneakers, a hoodie with the sleeves pushed up. No uniform, no medals, no sign that he had once worn a trident on his chest and carried the weight of impossible missions. To the 6 men blocking the woman's escape, he looked ordinary. That was their first mistake. "Hey," Ethan said calmly, stopping a few steps away. His voice was steady, almost gentle. "She's asking you to back off." One of the men laughed, a harsh sound, and stepped closer. "Mind your business," he snapped. The others smirked, spreading out just enough to make their point clear. The woman's eyes flicked to Ethan, wide with fear and a fragile thread of hope. She shook her head slightly, as if to warn him away. Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply stepped forward, placing himself between her and them, his body angled protectively without touching her. "It is my business," he said. "Because you're done here." What happened next unfolded fast but without spectacle. No wild punches, no dramatic flourishes, just efficiency born of discipline. When the first man lunged, Ethan redirected him with a movement so smooth it looked like a stumble, until the man hit the ground, winded and stunned. Another swung. Ethan stepped inside the arc, controlled the arm, and guided him down. The others rushed in, anger replacing arrogance, and the park erupted with shouts and gasps. Ethan moved like someone who knew exactly how much force to use and no more. He wasn't trying to punish, he was trying to end it. In moments, the men were on the ground, disarmed by nothing more than balance, leverage, and the certainty of someone who refused to lose. The entire confrontation lasted less than a minute. Silence fell heavy and stunned. The woman slid down the wall, shaking. Ethan crouched in front of her, his voice returning to that gentle register. "You're safe now," he said. "Can you stand?" She nodded, tears spilling freely now, and he helped her up, keeping his body between her and the men until sirens sounded in the distance. Police arrived quickly, followed by an ambulance. Statements were taken. Witnesses spoke all at once, some with awe, others with shame at having hesitated. Lily ran into Ethan's arms the moment she was allowed to, clinging to him like she had when she was smaller and the world felt too big. He held her tight, feeling the tremor in her small body, and whispered, "It's okay. It's over." But the story didn't end at the park. It rippled outward in ways Ethan never expected. The woman he had helped was named Maria. She was a nurse who worked long shifts and took the bus home because her car had broken down. The men had followed her from the stop. When she hugged Ethan goodbye, her gratitude was fierce and wordless, like someone who had been given her life back. "You didn't have to," she said through tears. Ethan shook his head. "Yes," he replied simply. "I did." That night, after Lily fell asleep with her stuffed bear tucked under her chin, Ethan sat alone at the kitchen table. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that used to make him restless. He stared at his hands, remembering other moments when he had stepped between danger and someone who couldn't escape, remembering the cost that had followed him home from war. He had left the teams to be present for his daughter, to build a life defined by bedtime stories instead of briefing rooms. Today had dragged that past into the sunlight, unavoidable. The next morning, his phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. The voice on the other end was formal but warm, introducing himself as a Marine general stationed at a nearby base. He had seen the report. More than that, he had watched the body cam footage. "I'd like to meet you," the general said. "If you're willing." Ethan almost declined. He didn't want attention. He didn't want to explain a life he was trying to live beyond. But something in the general's tone, respect without intrusion, made him pause. "All right," he said. For a little while, they met at a community center, not a base. The general was older, his posture still ramrod straight, his eyes sharp with experience. He shook Ethan's hand and didn't let go immediately. "You did a good thing," he said. "Not because of how you handled yourself, but because of why." Ethan frowned slightly. "I just stepped in." The general nodded. "That's the point. Courage isn't loud, it doesn't ask permission, and it doesn't end when you hang up a uniform." He glanced toward the playroom, where Lily was coloring at a table, her tongue poking out in concentration. "She's the reason, isn't she?" Ethan swallowed. "She reminds me what matters." Word spread, not with headlines but with conversations. Parents at the park smiled differently. Neighbors left notes. A local school invited Ethan to speak, not about fighting, but about choosing to act when it's easier to look away. He stood in front of kids who looked like Lily and told them the truth. That strength is for protecting, not proving. That kindness is a decision you make over and over, especially when you're afraid. Maria came too, standing in the back, alive and whole. When the kids applauded, she wiped her eyes. The general returned weeks later, this time with a small group. There was no ceremony, no band. Just a quiet moment in the same park where it had begun. He handed Ethan a folded flag, not for what he had done in uniform, but for what he had done as a father and a neighbor. "The country needs more of this," the general said softly. "People who remember their humanity." Ethan knelt and showed the flag to Lily. "This isn't about me," he told her. "It's about helping." Lily nodded solemnly, then looked up at the general. "You help too?" she asked. The general smiled, a real smile. "I try," he said. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the playground, Ethan watched families gather their children, laughter floating on the air. He felt something loosen in his chest, a knot he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. The world was still broken in places. There was still fear, still harm. But there was also a little girl who believed that asking for help mattered, a woman who went home safe, and a choice that had turned a moment of terror into a chain of kindness. That night, Lily curled against him on the couch. "Daddy," she whispered, sleepy but earnest, "you helped her." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "We did," he corrected gently. "You were brave enough to care." And in that simple truth, shared between a father and his daughter, was a promise that compassion could be louder than cruelty, that one step forward could change everything, and that hope, when answered, has a way of arriving right on time.